Okay, cool. All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Face the Truth. This is awesome. You know my next guest from, Johnny Carson. I mean, that's when I first remember this guy. Of course, SNL, stand-up comedy, tons of TV shows and movies, and of course, something I've been into lately is his Hiking with Kevin, which is hilarious and fun to watch. If you can handle people out of breath trying to talk, it's awesome. And then lately, it's come to my knowledge that Kevin's doing a lot of drawing and caricature stuff, so that really piqued my interest. That's pretty awesome. So, anyways, without further ado, please welcome Kevin Nipple Nealon.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, this is awesome, man. This is so cool. I mean, I'm sure you get this a lot, but I mean, it's just funny. Like I noticed a friend of mine actually, who was a caricature artist, was like, "Hey, dude, Kevin Nealon's liked something of yours or something." I was like, "What? That's crazy. That's crazy talk." But yeah, I mean, I remember as we've talked briefly, but I've been into comedy my whole life, just loving it, a fan, and. Yeah, I remember, the Johnny Carson days. My dad would let me stay up late and watch Johnny Carson, and then it turned into SNL. And so, you're basically my high school SNL. That whole crew.
Oh, nice.
So this is a huge honor, man. I'm just so super excited to get to talk to you, man.
Well, likewise. I mean, I only heard of you when I started going on Instagram. And how cool is Instagram where you could just follow all these artists and see all different kinds of artwork? And, before the only really good caricature artist I knew was Sebastian Kruger, because he had a book out, the Mick Jagger stuff and Keith Richards. And I thought, wow, this is like a whole different kind of thing that I'm not used to seeing. And then when I got on Instagram, I saw you and all these other people and Paul Moyse, and who you actually, he was a student of yours. And I thought, this is so great. And I started following them and kind of that's how you kind of learn, by watching other people's stuff, whether it's drawing or stand-up.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool. Oh, Paul, actually, I've known him for a long time, but it was before I was teaching. What it was him. He would send me critiques, or he would send me his artwork and his drawings, and I would critique them and send them back, and then he would send them to me. So it was like a beginning of a friendship. This was like 10 years ago, and then years after that, we ended up both going to, he's from England, obviously, you know that. Right. Then he would come to these caricature conventions that are here in the United States. They're held every year. I'm just about to go to one, actually.
One in Memphis?
Weeks. Yeah, the one in Memphis. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to go to that one too, but my schedule.
Well, that would have been awesome.
I know.
They would love it, man. But yeah, that we would go there, and then that's the first time I met him in person, and then we would compete, and then we would just there's like hundreds of artists from all over the world. It's a really cool event.
Yeah.
So that's so interesting to me that you. When did you start getting into the whole drawing, caricature type stuff?
Ooh, when I was 6 until I was 10, I lived in Germany. And I remember walking onto this military base and being in the PX, or in the commissary area. And there's, just soldiers everywhere. And somebody was sitting at one of the tables, and they had drawn a cartoon picture of a private, a soldier on a napkin with kind of like a sad sack with a big nose. And I thought, that is the coolest picture I've ever seen. And I started tracing it and copying it, and then I just started drawing. I think that was the point where I really realized that I enjoyed it. And also from drawing maps in school, by copying maps, I kind of got good at that, So I just, between that napkin and having to draw maps, I just started drawing and doodling a lot, in the margins of your notebook at school, and, letters and stuff, and, the shadow letters and 3D. And, and then I just started sketching people. And I remember at SNL, Saturday Night Live, when we had the table reads on Wednesday, sometimes it was like a long table read. There'd be like 40 or 50 sketches in there. You have to sit around the table. And I'd be sitting across from Chris Farley or Phil Hartman or Dana or Adam Sandler. And I just, I didn't have any sketches coming up. So I just started doodling on my scripts of the people. And I have, I have some Farley sketches still from back then, and, Al Franken.
That's awesome.
So that's pretty much how it started for for me.
That's awesome. And so you've been into it for a while.
I never took lessons until I kind of got with when I Skyped with Paul Moyse over the summer, and so I was really just kind of learning by watching other people,
Yeah.
which is good too. But yeah, I don't like to say that I'm an artist. I always say I like to doodle. I doodle because
Yeah.
I once you start comparing your work at a certain point to other people, it could either really inspire you or it could let all the wind out of your sail.
Well, you know what? I think I totally relate with that because as I've mentioned to you, like I'm starting to get into stand up. And I mean, I've been a huge fan for years, but now that I'm actually getting into the writing and I've done a couple of open mics and just, just kind of jumping into it, it's real easy to be super discouraged, when you find out that, I'm 42 now, and it's like, what the hell are you getting into stand up now? Or like, people are like, oh, it's going to take at least 10 years, so I try to like put that stuff aside and just focus on my writing, what makes me laugh, and just go for it. It's for me, it's not for anybody else. And I think that's the same thing with, it's easy with the caricature art and stuff to look around and be like, oh man, look at this guy. But I mean, for me, of course, I've been doing it since I was, I think 9 or 10 is when I started doing caricature.
Wow.
But my dad's an artist, and so I grew up around art my whole life. And caricature was one of those things where I think that it coincides with comedies like just so well.
You're finding the humor.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you this? How does your dad like your caricatures, by the way?
Oh, he's super proud, very, very proud dad.
Does he do caricatures too, or no?
Not really. He can. He's done my first book that I did like 10 years ago, I asked him to be a guest artist. I like to have other artists in my book, so it's not just a me thing. Yeah. And I wanted my dad in there, so he did. I think he did. Oh, he did caricatures of my daughters. That's right.
It's hard to do caricatures of kids, isn't it?
Well, it's not for me. It's not.
Outstanding features, They're not like a big nose or whatever.
Like for me, it's. Well, okay. Look, when I was starting, it was difficult because for me, caricature is like it's a challenging art form, and I think when you're first starting, it seems like maybe like a different language, because you're basically trying to understand what it is that you're seeing and then take it to another level, right? And it's about pushing and exaggerating the truth. It's not about distortion. Some people distort, but I think that distortion is the complete denial of truth, and I like to take it. Just like in comedy, like you want to have a setup and a punch, and you want to set it up. You want to exaggerate and push the truth, the things that are making that person, the unique qualities. So it's not about just picking a feature and just blowing it out of the water. You want to collectively capture the essence of a person, their posture and everything.
That is true. And also I think that like stand-up comedy, there's so many stand-ups out there and there's so many artists out there. They're all good. They're so good. You have to kind of create a style that's a little unique and also identifiable, like somebody drew, maybe it was you that drew David Bowie. And it was really an exaggerated, like the upper lip, and then like a thin post. I don't know. I think maybe it was you.
Well, I know Kruger's done one similar to that. He's one of those guys. It's funny. There's a lot like you can ask some of my buddies that are really into the character stuff that there's certain people that we stay away from just because Kruger has done it so many times.
Yeah,
it's like he totally fucked up the Rolling Stones for everybody. Like nobody draws Keith Richards anymore.
I mean, who would have thought of putting spittle from the tooth down to the bottom tooth? Like a strand of spittle. Oh, yeah. I thought, my God.
Yeah,
that's just really introspective right there.
Oh yeah, but I mean, to me, the caricature is I often think that it's like a really good caricature looks more like the person than a photo or a portrait could be. There's something about exaggerating it just the right way where you can capture that. And that's what's so much fun. It's just I just feel kind of in this climate right now. I feel like it should be utilized a lot more.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, it's a perfect kind of climate, like you said, for it.
Yeah.
But I'll also look at like Hirschfeld.
Yeah.
Which is a whole different way of doing caricature, and that's so identifiable too. That kind of look. I mean, with the eyes, the swirly eyes.
Oh yeah. The flow of the body.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably a lot more styles out there. Like you said, you don't want to be doing the same.
Yeah.
As everybody does, and you want to be kind of unique in a way where people can really spot your work right away. And that's
for sure. That's the trick. That's the trick for surviving as if you want to make it as an illustrator. I mean, that's the hardest part. Like for me, I'm always trying to push it, like change things, evolve, try new things. That's why I also do realistic portrait type work as well, because I want to like make sure that I can do a lot of different things, But do you know that Al Hirschfeld did a lot of those drawings in his pocket? Like he would be at like a Broadway play, and he'd have this big pocket with a sketchbook in it, and he would draw without looking at anything. Just watch the show and draw with his hand in his pocket
without even looking.
Yeah, in the dark.
Still in his pocket. He had big pockets.
Yeah, he had like a big jacket or whatever, and he would just draw. Like I can't even believe that. It's like. And then of course I think he would come back and like look at them and then like resketch them more.
Yeah.
But unreal, man.
Right. And would he resketch them in his pocket too?
Yeah.
It was like a Polaroid. It came out of there. It was all done.
It's crazy though. That's totally nuts. But yeah, there's a lot. I remember when I first started doing it, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know it was called caricature. And
which is hard word to spell, by the way.
Yeah, it took me a while to figure that out.
That's probably the second most hardest word to spell. Do you know what one of the first hardest words to spell is?
What?
People misspell a lot. Is the word definitely.
Oh, I definitely misspell that. That is actually the funniest thing, because there are so many times when I'm typing something and it like that word in specific where the little line comes up, and if it wasn't for our technology now, I just look like a moron.
Every word I type, and it ends up in red on the computer or underlined. I said, "What do you mean that's not the way to spell it? That's kind of the way to spell it."
When my dad was a youth pastor, and I just started getting obsessed with drawing people this way, and it's something like clicked, where and again, like I kind of thought that I made this up at that time. Again, I grew up in the middle of nowhere in North Wisconsin, and so we didn't have the internet then, and it was like I didn't have this way of seeing all this artwork or anything, So I just thought, oh man, this is some fun way I draw people, Yeah. And I would go to youth group and just destroy people, all the girls hated me, and but it was fun. I was having a great time. But what happened was this thing changed, where everywhere I went, I remember one time walking with my parents at the mall or something, and I started laughing out loud, and they thought they were like, "What's wrong with you?" And it was like this contagious laugh where I started laughing really for a long time, and then they started laughing. Nobody knows what's going on, and finally I told them, "Everybody's funny looking." Like. It's like everything changed, where I couldn't look at anybody without like, oh my gosh, like it's almost overwhelming.
I know it. I'm the same way. Like, since I've kind of started immersing myself in doing caricatures, everywhere I go, I'm looking at people as if I was going to sketch them, and what their outstanding character would be, or the exaggeration would be, whether they have a chin, or the big nose. It's crazy, like being in a fun house.
Oh yeah, it's really weird, man. It's like once that turns on. And that's the thing about the caricature convention that's crazy is, so there's a couple different kinds of artists that do this kind of stuff. Like you've got the theme park artists.
Yes. I'm not a fan of, by the way.
But there's some though that it'll change your mind when you see the ones that show up at this convention.
Convention. That's like November 18th, right? 17th, around there.
17th, yeah.
Because I remember my birthday's on the 18th, so.
Oh.
But Sunday's the 17th. I know that.
Yeah. But you'll see like some of these guys. There's like a friend of mine, Manny, who he actually has like a company that travels nonstop around the country, and they do not do caricature the way that you think of when you think of theme park. Like they're constantly pushing themselves, taking things to an extreme level where it's almost like abstract, the form and everything. And on top of that, they're really funny. But then you've got another group of artists that are just like my kind of group where we're more like illustrators and caricature. And, I don't get an opportunity in my line of work to exaggerate as much as I would like to. People are real, that's what I mean about the climate right now. It's real, like it's like walking on eggshells right now.
So like when you draw like when you sketch a caricature of, say, Adam Schiff for was it The Economist?
That was The Examiner, Washington Examiner. Yeah.
Do they give you notes like you're turning in a script? Do they say, nah, make his eyes a little smaller, or,
that one's actually, they're probably one of the most fun people to work for because they like when you exaggerate a lot.
Yeah.
But then there was a cover I did before that with, I can't think of her name. She's I think a senator, but she used to be a pilot, and I did a cover of her, and it was caricature.
Amelia Earhart? Is it Amelia Earhart?
No, no, she's a senator right now. I can't think of her name. Mick something.
Mick Jackson.
Mick. Yeah. I can't think of her name. But anyway, that was a caricature that was just barely exaggerated because they wanted her to be more. They didn't want it to be funny, right?
Right.
But with the Schiff one, they were like, this guy, I wasn't that familiar with him, to be honest. And they sent me pictures, and I was like, oh, this is great. What a great face. And then they said, yeah, we want to.
It was like.
Yeah. They were like, so originally I made the eyes even bigger, and so I did have to make them smaller.
Oh, they gave you notes on the eyes.
Yeah. They're like, but other than that, it looks great. And so that was a lot of fun, but a lot of, it's weird because when Obama was president, actually even going back to when Bush was president, I would draw Bush looking like a chimpanzee a lot of times. Right. And it just kept evolving, it just kept,
It's like doing impressions of someone.
Exactly.
I'll watch Ina Carvey take an impression of somebody, and then like with the Bush, it'll get all the way down to not gone that. Yeah. Not that, and where did that come from,
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it's like. And then I remember when Obama became president, the first one I think I did was with McCain and Obama together, and they're like sitting like this, and they have like a coat hangers coming out of their necks with a halo, like they're both angels. And they said to me, McCain looks great, but Obama's lips look way too big. And I'm thinking, not really. I mean, but I understand you guys are being touchy, first black president. We want to be, I get it. Okay. Right. But I, as an artist, I disagreed with the choice because it looked like him. Exactly. So what I ended up doing was I ended up making McCain's lips bigger, and which kind of works, and they didn't notice that. And we went with it. So I didn't even make Obama's lips smaller. I just made McCain's bigger, and it worked.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the 8 years that he was president, I just kept pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. Just exploring. Every time I got to draw him, I would try something different, and it was so much fun. And by the end of his presidency, it was like people didn't care how I drew him anymore. It was just like. Yeah. And it wasn't. I have nothing against Obama, but he was so much fun to draw. It was like a challenge. Like where can I take it? Because I don't like to do the same thing twice. I don't want to figure out a formula of a person and then just keep doing that. And then when Trump was running, I was getting really excited because I'm like, oh, this is great, because I've drawn Trump. For years before that, and he was always so much fun to draw. He's such a great character.
You're not really you don't concern yourself with the politics. It's all about, yes, let's win. It's a great face. I could draw.
Well, no, in a way, but like I was excited for like when he became the nominee, I was like very confused.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to be drawing him all the time. And I was like, he's never going to get elected. But whatever. And then when he got elected, like a lot of people, I was just like, I'm shocked. But I was in my mind, I'm like, all right, well, think positive. I'm going to be very busy. This is going to be fun.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing is I don't even know how to explain it. But ever since he's been president, it's the caricature stuff has just been like really mild. I think I've only done 4 or 5 covers of him, which are caricature. I've done some portraits of him, but it's like people, I don't know if they're afraid to do it or what's going on.
I've seen some of your Trumps, and they're really, really good.
Oh, thanks.
It's really astounding.
I try to have fun with it, you know.
So and you know, what I have to focus more on now is the body, you know, people, because I've focused so much on the face. I haven't like done the body and all the. And I can see behind you, you have, you know, the picture of, is that you, or I can't tell from here, but the way you're standing, the tattoos on the arms.
Oh,
yeah.
That's a friend of mine, actually, a painting I did. Yeah.
But just, you know, the posture of the body and stuff, that's so cool. And then, you know, the way Mort Drucker would do it in Mad Magazine, all the way the bodies were, and the big hands and the thin arms. You know, I love that stuff.
Yeah. You have to, you know, it's interesting. That's a really good thing that you brought up, because there's a lot of caricature artists that just focus just on the heads. And I learned when I was trying to get my career going that, because I was doing the same thing, I was just focusing on faces and getting really good at it. But then when it came to hands and everything else, I was terrible. And then I realized I need to be able to put people in scenes and make them interact with each other and that sort of a thing. And so
people love that, because it's action, you know, and they can focus on so many things, the face, what they're doing.
Oh yeah. And if you know, like, if now it's like when I do covers for something, I did a Donald Trump cover recently where they wanted him sitting at the desk, and he's kind of like this. I got to be able to draw that and make it look funny but real. So what I do now is I kind of do a thumbnail out of my head just to come up with an idea. But then the easy thing right now, like Rockwell would just love this, is it's so easy just to take photos now. And like I'll dress myself or dress my wife in different outfits and pose her and get like this awesome I'll just try to get information of folding and clothing or
shadows and light.
Yeah, exactly. Like set up how I want the lighting to be, and then that way I've got like an advantage already. Like, okay, now let's go back and redraw it and make it more accurate. Hands are super important, because like if you do an amazing face and then you mess up the hand, it doesn't matter how awesome the face is. Yeah. Because the quality just went away.
And it's funny too. I have this book on Mort Drucker and all that stuff, and he had thick fingers. So they were saying that, you know, he would copy his own hands. That's why a lot of the characters' hands and things had thick fingers.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's the one advantage now that's really cool, is most of the people that I have to do, like, you can like go on the internet and watch them. You can watch people walking, talking.
Yeah.
You know, and so like,
I was drawing a sketch where I needed a woman walking from a certain angle, you know, wearing shorts. So I went online and I was checking everything: women hiking, women walking on the beach, and I was just thinking, my wife's going to see this and she's going to think I'm, you know, getting a little crazy on the internet. But it is
that's pretty crazy. You look it up, women hiking, like, oh man, you pervert, you.
Yeah. Women hiking in short bikinis, you know, tight bikinis. But yeah, you could almost find a model anywhere on the internet. You know, and even with the right light, the right angle, you say, okay, yeah, that's about where the sun is, where I needed it. And that was the thing that Paul Moyse taught me. He taught me how important it was for lighting and shadows and the values, the color values and things.
Yeah, that's the one thing that's super important. Like that you brought up values, because that's the one thing that I when I teach with my students is that, like, normally if you're feeling like something in your drawing is looking flat, you know, like the nose. I mean, obviously the structure is important, you know.
Excuse me.
Bless you. Like you need to have the planes drawn correctly and everything. But if it's feeling flat when you're starting to paint, it's most likely because the values are off, you know. The lighting and the values make things more three-dimensional and that sort of thing.
Yeah, because I was drawing a dog the other day on a hiking path, this last thing I drew, and the dog just seemed really flat. It just seemed like it was just pasted on there, you know. And then I lightened it up a little bit to match the trail, the color, the value of the trail, but it still kind of jumps out. It looks a little flat, but that stuff, it's like stand-up. Then the more you do it, the better you get at it, and you figure things out as you go along.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, for me, it's fun. You know, it's a lot of fun. Part of the part of what drives me, what gets me because my deadlines are usually like 2 days to do like a cover or something.
Well, how much better would artwork be if there were no deadlines? But there wouldn't be as artwork.
Yeah,
No
but I
deadlines.
mean, but that's the thing is like it's for me it's like, okay, hey, we want you to do this image, and I only have a couple days, and it's like, all right, I gotta come up with the idea. Then I've got to see if my wife can pose for me for something, or if she's not here, I'll do it, whatever, light it. I mean, I've got so many weird pictures on my computer of like my wife or me, like in weird clothing and different things. But it's like, basically it's a problem solving thing. So it's not just about drawing the getting a likeness and, trying to convey the story, but it's everything, So I kind of enjoy that though, because it's a process. I'm sure it's similar to, like, I know I've heard lots of stories about SNL, like just like you guys come in on Monday and then it's just cram, and then the show happens. But I'm sure there's that rush of, man, we got to figure this out in a real short amount of time.
Yeah, it is the ultimate deadline, Jason. It really is. And Lauren Michaels, the producer, would always say that, the show is never ready to go on. It's just time to go on.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, even from the deadlines I've had, not like yours, like with drawing, but it's kind of like, I've been working on this so much. I'm tired of it. The deadline's coming up. This is good enough.
Yeah, you just got to go with it.
If you had the time to like put it aside and do something else to come back to it, it would probably be better,
Yeah, that seems like a lot of pressure. I actually, I heard something. I don't know if this is true, but I heard that like right before you went on SNL, that it was sort of like in a dying phase, like it was going out.
Well, yeah, I mean, the ratings were at the lowest ever, and I think they were talking about canceling the show. So that was the year Robert Downey Jr., Anthony Michael Hall. I mean, really good actors, but there wasn't the synergy between the writers and the acting, and it was Lauren Michaels' first year back after taking a hiatus for a while. So when we came on, I came on with Dana Carvey and Phil Hartman and John Lovitz, Jen Hooks, Dennis Miller, a lot of those people. The show was ready to be canceled, and we lived out of our suitcase every week because we didn't know if the show was going to survive, and that took a lot of the pressure off me too from being on a high visibility show like that, because I thought, well, no one's probably watching. I mean, the studio audience. I play in clubs with more people than this, so I just pretended that that's all who was watching, and that's how I got through it. But luckily, each week we got better, and people started watching it again, and then it was kind of back to Saturday night is live again.
Now that's crazy. So, when Lauren, I didn't realize that either. So he was gone for a while. But so did he handpick everybody when he's like, hey, I'm coming back. I got to fix this show. And he's like, here's some of my favorites.
He came back and he picked that cast with Robert Downey Jr., Anthony Michael Hall, and then the writers. And I don't know who they all were, but there just wasn't that synergy, I don't think, which you really need, the chemistry between the cast and the synergy. And then I guess he kind of figured out, he got rid of most of the cast except for Nora Dunn and Dennis Miller and John Lovitz and A. Wade Brown. And then the rest of us were new. And he brought Dana in and Jan Hooks and myself and Victoria Jackson and Phil Hartman. And it was a small cast as opposed to now where the opening credits go on for like 20 minutes, And so, but yeah, he kind of picked it with his talent coordinators. What they do is they kind of go around to the cities and they find people and they audition those people. And you can never get an audition in LA for that show unless you had a high-powered agent or manager.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even a sketch player. Dana got it that summer. This is back in the 1900s. And Dana got it, and I was excited that I knew that he got it because we were friends, and I was excited to say that I knew somebody on SNL now,
Yeah.
And a couple of weeks later, he calls me from New York. He goes, "Kev, I'm at Lauren Michaels' house. Guess who's in the kitchen? Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd." I said, "You're kidding me?" He goes, "No." He goes, "Anyway, Lauren's looking for one more cast member. I told him about you, and I think he's want to see your tapes." And I said, "Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd are in the kitchen?" I wasn't hearing the other stuff, Jason, because I knew I'd never done that show because I didn't do characters or sketches or accents or anything. I was just a stand-up, a really good stand-up. And then, so I sent them in. A couple weeks later, Dana calls me again. He goes, "Hey, Kevin, back at Lauren Michaels' house. Guess who's in the kitchen? Steve Martin." I said, "No way." He goes, "Yeah. Anyway, Lauren liked your tapes. I think I'll fly you in for an audition." I said, "Hilarious. Steve Martin's in the kitchen?" I still wouldn't believe it. So, I flew in just to show up, of course, and I do my little audition. Then I fly back to LA, and then 2 weeks later, I find myself sitting in front of Lorne Michaels in a high rise in Beverly Hills, and he's offering me a job, and I said no, because I showed up basically. I said, Lorne, let me think about it over the weekend. That's the way I play it. It's the way I roll.
You got to play it cool.
Yeah, you got to play a little hard to get. And he goes, well, you think about it over the weekend, and we'll see you in New York on Monday.
Jeez. That's crazy.
The next thing I know, I'm out at Lorne Michaels' house. I get a call from Dana Carvey. He goes, Kev, I'm back at Lorne Michaels' house in the back bedroom. Guess who's in the kitchen? I said, I'm in the kitchen now, tough guy.
That's so funny, man. Hey, this is a random question. Well, maybe not too random, because so my step grandpa, his name is Howard Johnson, and he used to be in the Saturday Night Live band, but I'm not sure right now, thinking about it, if he was on at that time. I think it might have been the 70s, but his name is Howard Johnson. He's a tuba player. But he was in the band for years.
See, I didn't know their last names. I knew all their names, but Howard, yeah, there might have been a transition period then. I was, the band back then was G.E. Smith, T-Bone, a lot of those guys, If I saw a picture of him, you have a caricature sketch of him? I might be able to recognize.
No, I don't. Well, it's funny. He's my step grandpa. He's black, so a lot of people get confused because I'm.
You know what? I was going to say that. I said, "Is he black?" Because
he is. He is black.
Too, yeah. Do you have like a gravelly beard, or
a little bit? I think on the chin, but he used to be in the band with Levon Helm. For years, he played in the band, and it was really cool.
Those musicians were so good on that show. I mean, they come everywhere. G.E. Smith, man, used to play with Hall & Oates.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Man, that's a crazy experience, man. It's so weird. I can't I've listened to a lot of different, of course, podcasts with different SNL people just talking about the stories, and I don't even understand how that show has lasted that long with people. I mean, that seems like you were on for a long time, 9, 10 years, something like that.
Yeah, I was on for 9 seasons.
Was it? Did you feel completely burnt out towards the end of that? I mean, that's
towards the end I did. And I stayed there. At the time, that was the longest anyone had ever stayed there, because I loved the show. I loved the spontaneity of it. I loved living in New York City. I never lived there before. And I loved being on this show where I could work with my idols that I grew up with.
Totally.
Keith Richards, Mick Jagger, Paul McCartney, James Taylor, Eric Clapton, Paul Simon, all of these people I grew up listening to.
Nice.
and then working with these hosts like Steve Martin and Tom Hanks, and I mean, Dolly Parton, it was such a wide range on the spectrum of actors. And it was I knew it was a great experience. And I knew it was a real gift for me to be there. Unlike some people would get there and they would be felt entitled and they should be a star within a year. And, they want to be the star of SNL. And I was I felt grateful that I was there, and maybe I didn't belong there. But I'm going to hang in as long as I can and kind of learn how to do sketches and characters and accents and, and it was fun, and I just loved the experience. But yeah, after a while, you kind of 9 years of it, and now the cast is huge. It started out with 8 people, and then it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's harder to get on, and but I got so comfortable on that show. It got to the point, Jason, where I was going out to do a sketch, and I still had food in my mouth from the craft service table, and I was eating. I was doing my scene and picking food out of my mouth.
That's
and I go back into my dressing room, and I got all my friends there. They're having a party. It's a small dressing room, and they got a blender. They're making margaritas. They're not even watching SNL. They got the TV on with something else going on. And I could almost hear the blender from the stage.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
I know.
And were you? I mean, at that time, did you have to come up with your own material to get on, to get picked,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have to. They have writers there, but everybody wrote just to kind of cover themselves, because it was a difference.
Because you want to be like, hey, I'm involved. Here's my idea. Let's, because the more of your ideas that get used, the more you're going to be on and everything. Okay.
Yeah, and I was hired as a writer too. That was initially I was a writer for the first season and a featured player. I was guaranteed 7 episodes, but I wrote for myself, so I got on a lot, and I was on every episode. And the next year, Lorne offered me either cast member position, or I could just keep the writer's position and not be a cast member. And of course, I went for the cast member, but continued to write. Just didn't get, and nobody got credit really for writing on that show, except the writers. But you did it because it was an opportunity for you to be on, and
Oh
especially
yeah, for
as
sure.
it got bigger and bigger.
Did you were you able to do stand up while you're doing that, or was it
Oh,
just
yeah.
way too much?
Yeah,
Oh, you did?
I never stopped doing stand up, and I've been doing it for almost. I remember I used to tell people I was doing it only 4 years because it seemed like that was like a window of time where people were asking me a lot, how long you've been doing this, and I'd say it's just like 4 years, 4 years, and now 40
Yeah,
40
that's
years,
crazy.
almost.
That's awesome though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it goes by fast. It goes by fast, and it's
amazing.
kind of like I keep tying it back to drawing and stuff and sketching it.
Yeah,
Your material evolves just like your art style. You emulate somebody at first. Like I'll look at your sketches and I'll start trying to copy those or Paul's. And you were like my Steve Martin of art. Because
yeah.
I emulated Steve Martin a lot and Albert Brooks and Andy Kaufman when I was coming up, and so I might start off watch how you draw Adam Schiff's eyes, or make the nose size, and then eventually I'll start creating my own style where people.
Yeah, exactly. That's totally. Yeah. That's exactly. It's funny that when you brought up Kruger before, because just like how I thought that I came up with caricature, and then my dad eventually gave me a book called Caricature by Len Redman, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually a thing. And it blew my mind. And then after years of just like all through high school, I just nonstop, I got better and better and better, pushing myself. And then just before I moved to Chicago, when I was 18, my dad gave me a gift. He gave me a Sebastian Kruger book that he saw at a Best Buy, maybe.
Yeah.
When they used to have like the book sections, I think. And first of all, it did two things. It blew my mind. But secondly, it pissed me off because I was like, that's exactly what I was trying to do. And this guy has been doing it since the 80s and he's killing it. Yeah. Like taking it to this and I just felt like I was almost like, do I continue or I just realized that I'm never going to be that, and I decided to take the other way and be like, you know what? I can do that. Like, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep doing it because it was that much of a holy crap like moment for me. Like
I know it, but what floored me is when I was studying the Impressionists, I was trying to learn how to paint in plein air and be outside with acrylics and oils and stuff, but I would read a lot of books, and then to discover that Monet used to do caricatures, I thought,
yeah.
For some reason you think it's a newer form of art, but no, it went all the way back then.
Yeah. Well, that's funny. Actually, when I was in art school, I wrote a paper about that very thing, that caricature is responsible for Impressionism. Because I actually personally consider caricature Impressionism. And when he was first getting started, he was doing caricatures, mostly ink drawings, I think. And he actually had them in galleries. And I can't remember the name of the artist. I think it starts with a B. But he actually took him aside and said, hey, this is not art. Let me show you what art is. And he took Monet plein air painting, landscape painting, and then eventually Monet starts doing these, starts exaggerating. He starts exaggerating with his color and his light and his shape, and it's sort of. I mean, he wasn't the first to do Impressionism, but he was basically one of the fathers of it. So I mean, I basically wrote a paper trying to convince my professor that caricature is why we have the Impressionists.
I think that's so true. I think caricature is more facial impressionism.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly.
Or human impressionism.
It is. It's your feeling. It's like your impression. And I was going to ask you this, like, because you studying impressions and everything. Something that I do, kind of unconscious a little bit when I'm drawing. I don't know if you do this. This is what I was curious about. Do you ever do voices and stuff? Because like when I do Trump, when I'm drawing him, sometimes I'll be like, "Oh, you little putty cat," Like I'll say stupid things like, or like I'm like looking at his mouth the whole time, going like, "Ugh," and I'll be like, "Ugh."
Yeah.
You ever do that kind of stuff?
I don't know that I've ever. I guess maybe you kind of embody the person, to try to get every facet of them in there, but that's interesting. Yeah.
Try to get the sound,
Do you listen to music when you draw, or do you listen to a podcast? Or
I listen to a lot of podcasts, mostly because I listen to a lot of music as well, but sometimes a podcast, like because I'm by myself when I'm working most of the time. So when I'm listening to a podcast, I kind of feel like at least I'm hanging out with someone a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm not just such a loner alone in my studio, but like when I'm working on, like, there's certain things, like when I've worked for Rolling Stone, like Lil Wayne, for example, I did a portrait for him, or of him, for Rolling Stone. And at the time, I wasn't familiar with Lil Wayne very much, so I bought a couple of his CDs. And the entire time while I'm drawing a painting, I'm just like, yeah, yeah, the whole time, just like, and just like getting into the feeling. Same with Elton John. Like I painted him. I just listened to Elton John for like 3 days solid, or 2 days, whatever the deadline was. And so I try to do that when I can, just because it helps me think about, like one thing I like to do is, I got an iPad Pro recently, or about a couple of years ago, actually now. It seems recent, but
how big is it? Is it the big one?
It's like the 12, I think, or it's the big size, but I love it. It's so much fun because you can take it anywhere, and it's like a digital sketchbook, and I love Procreate, and then Adobe Fresco is a brand new program that just feels so natural. But
I'll write that down, Adobe Fresco.
Yeah.
I have the smaller iPad. Would that still work?
Oh yeah. No, it'll work. It should be fine.
But don't you miss like drawing like on paper?
Oh yeah, I draw on paper.
Ask you that. You do oil, you do acrylics at all, or most of those?
Oh yeah. I was acrylic for years.
It's much cleaner.
Well, the thing is
to clean up.
Yeah, I'm kind of a perfectionist when I'm doing my oils. Like everything is set up just so I don't get paint everywhere. I'm very like organized with it, so it's not that bad for me to clean it up. But once I started painting with oils, I kind of did a couple acrylics, but then I realized it's just a pain in the ass. Because acrylics, yeah, they dry way faster, which is nice, but they dry always darker than what you wanted, and you have to keep building it up, and then it's really difficult, even to do a simple like background to certain color, and then to kind of match it again. Like if you need to go in there, it's gonna dry different, and it's never gonna. There's just subtle things like that where I'm like, well, this is a pain in the ass. I don't have to deal with that with oil at all. Right. Oil is alive. It's just, it can be very hard. I think oil is like playing chess, whereas acrylics is like playing checkers.
Right. It's like, and the oils take what, like 3 years to dry? Is that what it is? 3 years?
It can take a while. I mean, you can use like liquid and stuff to dry things quicker. But
when you I'm sorry, this is probably a lesson that I'll have to take from you. But when you draw on the let's say the Wacom, do you use a Wacom?
Yeah. Yep.
When you draw on that, and let's say you're doing hair, where you put the you do the values first, like dark and then lighter areas, and then you put the strands in later, right? With a finer brush.
Yeah.
Do you do that with oils too? Do you put the
yeah.
Well, and then come back with the.
My painting technique, digital and traditional, is almost exactly the same. I'll do under paintings, experiment with color, how it vibrates with another color and that sort of a thing. But with oil, same with digital as well. But with oil, I start with a bigger brush. I always start larger brush, block in the mass, bigger shapes. I don't think about details at all. And then as I slowly go into work I start getting smaller brushes, and I start defining, softening edges. And so when it comes to hair, I don't think about the little details of the little strands. It's all about the biggest shape, and then the next biggest, and the next, and I just start just sculpting the light and everything. And then at the end, I'll come in with like a real small little brush and start like doing little. But lately, like I've got some paintings I've done before where I have painted every little hair, like acrylic and stuff. Now, the more I paint, the more I'm getting into being more suggestive and more painterly with things. I think like Sargent's one of my favorite painters of all time, and Zorn, and that's the kind of stuff that I'm getting more into, is where I want to suggest. I want you to step back and be like, wow, that's so awesome. Then you come up and you're like, holy crap, that's like 5 brush strokes.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. That's but it's actually harder in a way, Yeah. It's a lot harder actually.
It is.
That's the one thing I love about it though. Painting is like one of those things where you're just constantly they're growing, and there's never just a set way. With oil, there's so many techniques, it's ridiculous. You know, you can become one of those artists that is stagnant and just, hey, I figured it out, and you just do the same thing over and over again. I could never do that, so I'm always like trying a new palette, or you know, even like plein air painting. I'm not that great at plein air painting, but I enjoy it because it kicks my ass every time I try it. Like, I learn so much about lighting and form, perspective.
Yeah.
So there's
this artist, local artist in Malibu, not too far from my house, and I left her. It was actually Manhattan Beach, and I left her paintings. And the woman who ran the gallery said, "Why don't I contact her and say, because I said I'd love to watch her paint sometime." And so they got a hold of her. She goes, "Yeah, why don't you call?" She said, "Call her." And I called her. She goes, "Yeah, why don't you come and paint with me? I'm going to paint the sunrise down on the beach." So I said, "Okay, well, I guess I'll have to get up early then." So she said, "Bring your easel and your canvas and your paints." And so I did, and I met her down at the beach. And she had like 5 or 6 canvases, and she was just changing them all the time, for the different light.
Oh, she was painting on several at once?
Yeah, she would keep switching out. Yeah, yeah. And she's quick, and I just had one canvas, and by the time I got my sunrise, it was already noon. It was high above my head.
Yeah.
But it's all about, a lot of it is the lighting.
You should see my. I'll have to send you some links to see my dad's work. 'Cause my dad's he's a retired educator. He taught art for like 30 years or something like that. But he is a full-time plein air painter. That's what he does now. He travels and teaches, and he's done several books and whatever. But he full-time plein air. That's all he does.
Great.
He does like well over 360 paintings a year. So he's doing sometimes 2-3 paintings a day. It's crazy.
Is that how you learn, basically, from watching your dad?
No, actually, that's a funny thing. Like, everyone assumes that, but I think I grew up around it, and I wanted to be an artist ever since I mean, I can't remember a time where I wasn't drawing nonstop, but my dad never pushed it on me. And then, when I finally got to the age where I would watch him constantly, and I would sit next to him, and I would draw, and he would draw, and he was into wildlife, so I would start drawing wildlife, and but then it got to a point where I remember once trying to ask him to teach me something, and I totally blew him off. I realized I just want to draw Ninja Turtles. I don't want to do this stuff. And so I kind of just blew him off for years and did my own thing. And then I moved to Chicago. I joined bands, and I toured for like 5, 6, 7 years, just touring in bands and recording records and stuff, and then doing my art on the side. And then all of a sudden I ended up doing my art full time, and created my own separate career. And then finally, and I taught myself how to paint. And then basically, once I actually had a career, I ended up going back to visiting my dad one time, and just hung out with him, and he painted, and I watched him, and I was like, oh wow, I'm getting what you're doing, and we just, now it's kind of like we just hang out and we paint. And
that's so great.
And most of the time I'll just watch him, because he's a really funny guy. I went to Alaska with him, where he was teaching plein air painting, and there was this guy that was like this is one of my dad's coolest moments ever, I think, is this guy was kept asking him, what kind of brushes do you use, and you can't be a good painter if you don't use this kind of paint or these kind of brushes and all this stuff. And my dad, while this guy is talking, my dad bends over and grabs a stick, and he starts chewing on the stick like a friggin' lunatic. He's just going, you're sitting there chewing on a stick, and the guy's just going on about brushes. And then my dad starts dipping the stick in his paint, and he does a plein air painting with a stick that he just chewed on to make the end soft.
Awesome.
And it was no oil. It was just kind of like, so what kind of brushes do you need? And he just did an oil painting with a stick, and it was like, I was like, man, my dad is awesome. It was so cool. So
that's great.
So yeah, now I definitely learn a lot from him. But yeah, we do completely different kind of art. He doesn't really. He paints people sometimes, but he's mostly painting wildlife and that kind of stuff. So, but it's cool. It's cool to be able to call him and be like, hey, Dad, what kind of I'm trying to figure out a different medium to use. What do you think? And he's like, oh, he'll send me like a novel of like, he knows so much about all that stuff. So
I mean, even going back to the Impressionists, back in the 1800s, they would use like egg yolks, or not the Impressionists, back like to like, Da Vinci and those people. They would have egg yolk they would use for yellow and and mud and whatever, and
it blows my mind. Like, when I was a kid, my dad would take me to art museums, and my dad might be embarrassed about this, but I don't really care. But he would stand in front of a paint. I'd be like, "Can we leave? Like, we've been here for way too long." And he'd be standing in front of this painting, and he would be weeping, like. And I never understood. I was like, "What is wrong with my dad? Like this? I want to leave. Let's go to Taco Bell or something. Like, this is ridiculous." And now I get it, because now I go to the museums and I see these paintings like Rembrandt, and they were painting in the dark with candles with paint that they made, and you're looking at this painting and it's just like, now I'm the guy like about to cry, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. I get it.
The other thing is, when you see these murals that they did, like in the Sistine Chapel or whatever, that over the years have just gotten dull, and then when they clean them, you see the actual original. And it's like, wow, that's amazing.
I went to Italy. I've only been there once, and my wife's Italian. Her family's Italian, and we went together, and we stayed right next to the Duomo in Florence, and then we went to Siena. And I don't know if you've ever been to Siena, but there's this just beautiful giant church that the podium that the priest stands on was carved by Michelangelo. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine standing on a Michelangelo. And then there was this room that's never open that it's like open a couple times a year. They let us go inside, and it's a little library, and the entire ceiling is painted by Raphael. And they said that it's never been dusted or touched because they're terrified to touch it. And it's still the most vibrant, colorful thing I've ever seen. It's unreal. Yeah. It's like you realize I'm in this room that hardly anybody gets to go in, and it's like the ceiling was like maybe only 10 feet. So you can just see this amazing art. It blows my mind. It's just like, it makes me feel silly sometimes.
When you travel like that, do you bring like a set of pencils with you and paper?
Yeah, my wife and I, she's an artist as well. So we'll bring I like to take like watercolor. I like to do like watercolor sketches and like
a little tin of watercolors.
Yeah, I have like a little travel kit that's really nice, and it just fits in a pack real easy. It comes with a little canteen that attaches to it that's got water, so you can and then the canteen you flip it over and it's like a palette, so you can mix color on top of that, and like it's pretty cool.
Can you put like brandy in that canteen?
It's very thin. Just keep that in the flask in the coat.
Right.
Well, we've been talking for almost an hour, which doesn't even seem like it. But I want to make sure to get some questions for you, if you don't mind.
Got a lot more to talk about too. We'll have to do this again.
Yeah, not for sure, man.
Yeah.
So let me show you my first question. This is actually from my good buddy Joe Bloom. You would really.
Oh, hey, Joe.
Yeah, you will really dig his work. He's him and I have been friends and basically soldiers in this whole caricature illustration world. He's actually won an Oscar. He worked now he's into character design and storybooks, and he's worked on animation films, and he won an Oscar with his group on a short a few years ago. So he's pretty amazing artist.
I'll have to check out his work, Joe Bloom.
Yeah, Joe Bloom. He's really, really brilliant. But here's a question from Joe. Oh, let me push.
Hey, Kevin. Obviously, I'm a huge fan. My name is Joe, and I'm an artist like Jason. You are one of my favorite SNL anchors, by the way. So when you do Hiking with Kevin, what makes a good guest on your show? What makes a good guest hiking with you? And, is it that they can keep up with you? Is it that they are entertaining? Is it that you like them? And second question is, who have been your favorite guests and why? Thanks, man. Love you.
Well, I think all those things do count, for a good guest, and also a good sense of direction.
Yeah.
It's I like the guests who are interesting, that kind of are forthcoming and revealing,
Yeah.
that aren't in a hurry, basically. Sometimes people have a certain amount of time, and I get that. But like I hiked with Eddie Izzard the other day. I'm posting his hike today. Talk about deadlines.
Yeah.
And he, we hiked for almost 3 or 4 hours up to the Hollywood sign, and to edit his hike down to 20 minutes or less is like, it's an incredible feat to have to do. I mean, I've never put so much work into, editing. So I'm going to make it a two-parter.
Yeah.
At least. So, he was very forthcoming and had a lot of interesting things to talk about. So that makes a good guest. And what was the second question from Joe? Who was the best?
The second part was, I think that was the second part, like, and why. No, I think he said and why.
Yeah. But also, I like hiking with, everybody's great. There's no like one person who is the best hiker or the best. Some people are in better shape than others. Some people, I call them flatliners, where they just hike flat. And it doesn't matter to me, because on video, I realized you can't tell if you're going up a steep incline or if it's flat.
Yeah.
So usually,
That's
if people
funny.
say, "Hey, you seem pretty out of breath on that hike," I say, "Well, did you see how steep it was?" No, can't see it.
So it's such a great idea. Yeah, I think you were saying something like David Spade was like, "Yeah, I got to go flat."
Yeah, he was really particular. He had to be flat, and it had to be at a certain time, so he missed traffic going home, and it's hypoglycemic, so he's got to have a little bit of food, and
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
But
They're all fun. Each one is so individual. Everybody is so unique, and I just love it. And it's one of those things that I just stumbled upon by accident.
It's a great concept. I mean, especially right now with this day and age of doing podcasts and everything. Everyone's doing a podcast, and so like what you were saying before, like with your stand up, with artwork, you've got to have this original voice, and that's what's so great is that no one's got a podcast like what you're doing. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's a web series, but it's also the guests, if they don't have a good time, at least they got some exercise.
Yeah, that's true. So this is a question by Ryan Biddle, and let's see, I'm not sure what the question is actually. So let's see.
I like the name Biddle.
Ryan Biddle.
Were you flattered by Jerry Seinfeld mentioning your show as a knockoff in his last?
Hold on, I think.
Were you flattered by Jerry Seinfeld mentioning your show as a knockoff in his last promo for Comedians in Cars, or did you consider it a slight jab?
Well, that sounds like a robot voice, doesn't it?
I think he's like a serial killer.
He's talking about, Jerry Seinfeld had a promo for his upcoming season of Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, and he was kind of poking fun, I guess, at a lot of the shows that are out there that were influenced by his show. And he named a lot of car stuff, people in cars doing this. Alec Baldwin had something, and all car related. And then he said, and to my surprise, he goes, "And hiking with Kevin." And I thought, what? How is my show like yours? Is it anything not in the studio? Is your idea? So yeah. But he didn't have another promo, a shorter one. So I think he kind of realized it wasn't that much like it. So no, it didn't really offend me in any way. It was nice just to be mentioned.
Yeah, that's hilarious. So real quick, before I want to show you some fan art. There's something I do in my podcast from time to time, and this is my friend Joe Bloom's favorite part of my podcast, and it's called Serious Questions with Jason Seiler. And my serious question for you, Kevin.
Let me put on my serious face. Hang on a second.
Yeah, put that on. My serious question for you is, I've heard that you're a bidet man.
I'm a bidet and night man.
Bidet and night man.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, how has this changed your life, and what can I do to convince my wife to get one?
Well, it's a bidet is the French word for it. It's a heated toilet seat that shoots up water sprays.
Yes.
3 different pressure speeds, and I'm telling you, bullseye every time.
Yeah.
And the guy must have had me in mind when he designed it. But it's changed my life immensely. I don't leave the house anymore. I'm on it right now, by the way. Sitting on the toilet seat right now, and at the heat that it puts out, it heats our whole house. This is the only source of heat we have for our house. So, but I do like it, and it's really has, our water bill's gone up $500 a month, but still,
sure.
I like it a lot.
I'm sure like everyone's just like in there for like 20 minutes. They come out feeling very happy.
Well, Jason, when people come over to use our bathroom for the first time, they don't know I'm standing outside the bathroom with a remote control. And so I let them settle in, and then
you're like that guy in the Matrix that's like, I can make her orgasm.
Let them settle in, and I hit the spray button. I hear a loud scream inside, and then it's quiet for like a half an hour, and then they come out, and they're very.
They come out Catholic. It's all good.
That's right. They've been baptized.
Yeah, and then there's a second part to this question. And the second part of this question, I'm not sure how it's related, but we can figure that later, is if you ever come to Chicago, can I go hiking with you? Doesn't have to be the show, but we can do a hiking with Jason and Kevin, maybe through the art museum or something like that.
That would be great. Love that.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
And that was serious questions. With
I'm going to be in Chicago soon. I was supposed to be at Tinley Park. Is that what it's called? Tinley?
I'm not really sure, actually.
Right outside of Chicago somewhere. But anyway, I'm going to be there, I think, in February.
Oh, cool. That'd be awesome.
So we'll have to hook up.
Yeah, well, either way, it'd be awesome to hang out. It'd be really cool.
Yeah.
So I have, let's see. I have a bunch of awesome fan art.
Nice.
Which I think you're going to dig. Let's see. Tell me if you see the screen. And let me know if you see this.
Oh, yeah, I do.
Awesome.
That's great. Yeah, the forehead. Uh-huh.
And this one, I'll say their names too. This one is by Jamie Butler.
I love that.
And I'll send all of these to you as well. You can have copies.
Are these quick sketches or?
These are anything. I do this. I try to do this with every episode because I just think it's a fun thing to show guests. Sometimes people do realistic portraits, sometimes caricatures, paintings. And there are people from all over the world too, which is really awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
This is by Randy G. I'm not sure what the last name is.
I like that style. Yeah.
Did you ever hear the one about? Let's see. This is pretty nice. This is by Jonathan Groot.
That is cool. Cool.
This one I believe is color pencil. I think it is. It's hard to tell sometimes now with the digital stuff because it's getting so good, but this looks like actual color pencil.
That really is good. They're all good. Each one of them has been amazing. Man. Yeah. This is fun.
Yeah, you got that nice like tight top lip with the bottom lip.
Yeah, very thin top lip, and then the teeth, and the eyes with like the droopy kind of eyelids. I like that.
It almost kind of looks like you got some chew in your lip.
It does. I noticed that this side of my cheek is fuller than this one. I think it's because I have an extra tooth on this side.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird. Maybe your muscle's been compensating for all these years. That extra tooth is like, so. That's crazy. So,
oh, that's great.
This is great. This is David Yellen.
God,
and speaking of Hirschfeld, this is kind of a little bit of that style. I think it's
the hands. Cool. Yeah, the hands are similar.
Yeah,
it's great.
He said this is from I think his favorite skit from SNL.
I think it's my favorite too.
Oh, yeah,
awesome. It's a bathroom attendant sketch. It was a small bathroom and no stall, and Harvey Keitel came in and he had to go number 2, and I just helped him do everything. I love this.
That's awesome. Now, this is an interesting one. This is by Dominic Zeilinger. He's a friend from Austria. And I don't know if can you see it? Your face?
Yeah, that's just amazing.
Yeah, he said this is not his normal style. He said he wanted to experiment and try something different for this. So it's pretty cool.
I love that.
Yeah, he basically did it all with circles, the whole thing. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean everything except for the eyes.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, I love that. I love when people. That's the other thing too. But at the convention, that would blow your mind is just the so many techniques. And then every year there's this group of Japanese artists that come, and they are unreal. The techniques and the different things they're doing is just like will blow your mind. It's just awesome.
What's the best day to be there?
I would say towards the end because then you'd see like the walls starting to fill up.
Yeah.
Because every artist gets a wall space. The first couple days, artists are, just working and working, and some stuff starts coming up and getting put on the walls. But for the most part, it's kind of towards the end is when you're going to start seeing like things really coming together and everything. It's pretty crazy, like literally thousands of pieces of art. It's nuts.
That's great.
This one is by Elise, and again, I don't know the last name. They just said Elise.
Yeah.
So
God, see, it's like music, man. I'm blown away at how great people are at what they do, and there's so many so talented people out there. And, you see all these musicians, these great musicians playing these little pubs, getting like $100 for the night. And you go, wow.
Yeah.
And then, drawings like these, I mean, it's just spectacular.
Oh yeah, no, it's cool. This one, by the way, I think is just like a blue color pencil on paper.
Yeah.
It's nice. I love
crosshatch.
Yeah, I was gonna say I love the cross hatching. It's really nice.
Yeah.
This is a nice one.
I love that.
This is by Blake Loosely. Blake Loosely.
Blake Loosely. That is so fantastic.
Yeah, it's a good one.
That's great. That's really. I wonder if I could use any of these, like for,
Yeah, I can. Like I said, I'll send them to you, and then if there's anything specific, I can get you their email and stuff too.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah, no problem.
These are great.
And this one is by Jason Williams.
Damn. I had a character of my mother and my father that were fantastic. I don't know who did them. It was in Europe somewhere. But it wasn't like the Disneyland people that you always saw. And it was really kind of the early, caricatures of what you're kind of seeing now. And,
yeah.
And I had them on the wall near the base of my foot of my bed. So every night when I laid down in bed, I would just stare at them and I'd watch every kind of nuance that the guy did, that the artist did. And I remember my father had a big forehead and it was the first time I really saw caricature work. And I thought, that is really cool. These are so great. It shows you how many different ways you could do somebody.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's the fun thing about caricature is that, you can, there's not like a correct way to draw somebody, There's definitely incorrect ways, and I know that might be confusing, but like if it doesn't look like the person, well, then that's the incorrect way. But I mean, there's so many different approaches. Like with Obama, for example, there was times where I did him like where he's got a very long face, so I would decide to make the top of his head. Like when I do caricature stuff, I try to think about where's the weight on the person's face. Like do they have a giant heavy chin and a smaller forehead, or do they have like a small little face and then a huge forehead?
Yeah.
And with Obama, it's like there was times where I gave him more of a longer forehead, but then I started, I wanted the attention to be on his eyes. So I decided to make the top of his head really kind of small, and I would get it smaller and smaller and make his face longer and longer.
Yeah.
And it's you just start to like experiment with it, but there's, and that's the thing with Trump too. Like there's so much that guy is like a sandbox to play in with his face. I mean, his hair, his face. He's got a vagina under his chin. I mean, it's crazy. Have you ever noticed that? Like under his chin, it's like a full-on vagina, like under there.
Notice that.
Yeah.
So sexy looking.
Yeah. Next time, look.
Jesus, these are amazing. These are so cool.
This is by a friend of mine, Bernd Ertel. He's from Austria, and I think he said, I can't remember what he wrote exactly, that he's a huge fan of weeds, and I think this is something from that. So
yeah. This is so entertaining.
it's awesome.
That's so cool. That's great.
Yeah, I like with this one. It's kind of cool too. Is I like that he's got the blue behind you, which makes everything pop. But then there's like this nice, cool blue on the other side of your face and the wing of your nose. That like it's really cool.
Yes, that's so great. I mean, it's just the colors really pop. You know, the browns even they pop out because of the shadowing and the light. That's really great.
Yeah, it's cool. This one's great.
Yeah, circular. It's circular. Hardness do good. Block the bad.
I like the style of this one. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, that is cool.
It's awesome. By the way, that was by Malcolm Monteith or Monteith.
Oh yeah, I see that.
Monteith.
That's great.
And this one is by Heather Latte.
Nice. Heather Latte. That's a good name.
Yeah.
Latte.
Yeah. I'd like to have some latte right about now.
Yeah.
You can imagine.
Interesting. She put the square behind it to kind of balance it, I guess.
Yeah. Who knows? I mean, but yeah, it's nice cross hatching and stuff on this one too, though.
Yeah, really fine. These are so good, man.
It's cool to see, right? All these different drawings.
Yeah, there you go.
This is funny.
Oh man, it's the truth. You know, you look at the truth. That's what people.
It's funny.
You know what? It's funny when I first come out on stage. Typically, currently, my first line is, "Well, this is what I look like," because people are taking you in as you come out, and that's what they're thinking. They're processing. That's the first thing they can do is that's what it looks like. That's what he looks like.
That's funny. Oh, this is by Michael Crotty, by the way.
Yeah.
Circular.
So it seems like most people, it's the forehead and the nose. My nose has kind of gotten a little bigger as I've gotten older in the end here. And that's true. And then the eyes are kind of like, what do they call them? Lazy eyelids I mean, there's so many things, the thin top lip and the chin. But, yeah.
And that's also another thing that's funny about the caricature convention is because when we go to this thing, it's like normally in the career world, where you're doing it for a living, you don't exaggerate very much. Yeah. You get away with what you can, but they like to make it a sport at this convention where people it's part of the fun of the convention is it's pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and how far can you take things and how creative can you be. And we draw and paint each other. So it's a room. People don't come to pose for you. You're drawing and painting all the artists that are there. And so it becomes this fun thing of like, you know the people. So you start recognizing them on the wall everywhere. And you see how many different ways people have drawn the same person, Yeah. It's a lot of fun. Now this one's cool. This is by Lars Eric Robinson, and he's submitted a lot to my podcast in the past, and this is the most unique style I've seen from him. So he's pushed
almost
himself.
like a cafe drawing,
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, I really like how he did this one.
Oh man, these are so great. I'm glad you're gonna send these to me.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
That looks kind of like a watercolor and pen.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it could be. Marker. There's an artist, a friend of mine named Steve Broadner, and he's a very well-known illustrator in New York. In fact, did you see the new Alec Baldwin show that came out this year?
Yes, and I do know that artist, and I know his drawings of Alec because when I hiked with Alec, he talked about him, so I looked him up when I got home. Oh,
okay, cool. I was just going to say that this reminds me of Steve Broadner's work a little bit.
Yeah, right.
And it's for this artist Lars, this is a huge push and stretch for him because he's never, this is like a different style almost. So it's kind of cool to see him push himself.
Yeah, that is nice. I like that.
Yeah, it's really cool. This one is by Salah Qadari.
See, this is what I like. I like how when people just have that freedom to let go,
Yeah.
not be constrained and trying to make. I mean, that is so cool, man. I love that.
This guy's style is crazy too. Like he does, like he really takes it to another level.
Yeah.
This one is actually less violent than most of the drawings he does, and I don't mean, I should say aggressive, not violent. Like he'll do like these like splattering of like the inks and different things, and it's so like aggressive. This one's one of the more tamer ones. And
now,
it's still,
now I'm starting to get angry because these are all so good.
yeah, well, it's a good thing though.
Yeah, I love that, man. I love all these. Are so great. The Hollywood sign in the back. Oh man, that's so cool.
And I think this is the last one. This is by Ryan Biddle. He's the one with the serial killer voice. That
yeah, that's great. Look at that. I love the colors. The blue background with the green. It's almost like a Hunter S. Thompson kind of a look.
Oh yeah, for sure. That is true. That's really cool. That's funny.
That is
but yeah, I'll send you copies of all these for sure.
Okay, great. Yeah, and let me know what the artist is on there too.
Oh yeah,
that's hard to name sometimes.
I saved the files are all saved as their name.
Okay.
So that way it's a little bit easier. But I just realized that I do have another question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
From Ryan, the guy that just did that last thing. He sent me a couple questions, and I'm not sure what this one says, but I figured I might as well just play it real quick. Since now you...
What part of producing Hiking with Kevin do you like the least?
Oh, did you hear that?
Who do I like the least of what that I hike with?
No. Let's see.
What part of producing Hiking with Kevin do you like the least?
Oh, okay.
Oh, there you go. Well, that's the other question.
The part of Hiking with Kevin that I dislike the most is the process of finding people to hike with. You know, going through the publicists and sending them the letters and the correspondence back and forth and scheduling, trying to get a time. You know, the rest is fun. The editing is challenging because it takes a while. It takes time, and but I can't give the editing to somebody else because it's such a part of the comedy of it all. It's, you know, your stuff, you know, when to cut and when to add. So I think it would be the casting of it is my part. If I could get somebody that could just cast it and say, okay, next week you're hiking with Obama, you know, or Oprah, I said, great, meet them, you know, would be great.
That's I think it's just such an amazing concept. And it's so entertaining. I mean, the first time I saw it, I was like, is this just to be honest, I think the first one I saw, I thought, is Kevin just spoofing podcasts? Like, is that what's happening right now? Like, I didn't know there was a bunch of them. And then I watched the first one. I don't remember which one it was, but then I just started watching them while I was working. And it's kind of funny because I can't really watch it.
Yeah.
Like, I have it on a separate screen and I look over. So it's mostly like, you know, so is it true?
Yeah.
You know, but it's so entertaining. And
the thing I like the most about it, that's the most soothing to me, is the crunching of the feet.
Oh yeah.
At first, true. You know, sometimes a friend will say, they'll watch for the first time and go, the crunching sound is really distracting and annoying. I say, well, you'll get used to it.
Yeah.
And then like a week later, it's like, you know what? I like the crunching sound.
Yeah.
You know, it's real soothing. There's videos of people that have really high, you know, views of just eating because it's a soothing sound. You know, the crunching but
it's so weird though. My daughter, I have 3 daughters, and my middle daughter, she's 12. She likes all these weird videos of like these weird things, and she sits there and watches them. It's just no, I don't know.
It's a sensory thing, and so I leave the crunching in. I try not to put the mic too far down toward the feet, but it picks it up, you know. Anyway, and I kind of like that kind of, and I have like. And if there's a clip that doesn't have the crunching sound, I will copy and paste and put some crunching sound in there.
You know, the one thing that this just came to my mind because I was wondering this before. So you do this whole thing by yourself. You have a selfie stick, but there's like aerial views and stuff. Are you doing you have a drone while you're doing this, or do you film with a drone later and just edit that in?
I have a drone. I bring the drone in my, that's what's in my backpack, is a drone and some water. And then like halfway through the hike, I'll stop and set up the drone and get some B-roll, some aerial shots, and I'll have the controller in my right hand and the selfie stick in my left hand, and I'll be working it from there. And then I'll land it after I've gotten like, a bunch of shots, different shots, and then I'll put it back in my backpack. I'm trying to teach my 12-year-old son how to do that now, but
that would be perfect.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, so I do that, and I'm just trying to make it look a little more stylized, a little more, I don't want to get too polished on it where it looks like a Comedians in Cars, where it's really kind of fancy. And
you don't want to get him like, hey, wait, now you're hiking and drinking coffee? Come on, man.
Yeah. So, and then I'll also set up a tripod like in the woods with my cell phone camera on it. And as we walk by, it's a different kind of a shot, so it's not just the two of us in camera the whole time.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Fun. Well, there's like, we could talk forever, man. This is like really cool. And I love talking art with you, man. It's like, it's so cool being able to talk with someone that's into comedy about the whole caricature thing too. Cause it's such like I said before, I think it's a real, I think they work together very well,
Yeah.
And it's really interesting hearing your perspective of it, And so are you, is this something that you're doing? Like I'm curious about like what you want to do with the art. Is it like right now, like, because I could see you using it even with your show that you're doing now, you know what I mean, like doing drawings of your guests and different things like that.
Yeah, I mean, talk about that, but it would take it already. I have to do so much to meet my deadline every week. Every Thursday I post a new hike. And just the editing and the shooting of it, and casting other people for the future takes up so much time. And then to do a good drawing for me, I can't just scribble something out really quick. I mean, I could, but it wouldn't be that great. It would just add more time to it. But I think ultimately, when I get more of a staff and I have somebody work the drone, and maybe somebody can edit it like I would edit it, then I have time to do that.
Yeah.
It would be fun to have that as part of the place card in the beginning, to show.
Well, I think it would be hilarious too, just because, I mean, I looked through what I saw on Instagram, and you've got like a really, what I enjoy about some of the characters I saw was you can see the sense of humor in there, and that's one thing that's fun about caricatures. It doesn't have to be exactly how you exaggerate the features. You can exaggerate like a subtle amount, but then you squeeze in that sense of humor in a certain way, like the Giuliani. I thought was hilarious. Almost looks like a portrait because it's just the way that you did the expression and everything was just exact,
Thanks. Yeah, that's on my my Instagram, Kevin Nealon artwork. But it with the Giuliani thing lately, I was thinking about kind of reposting that one, but putting bars in front of them, jail cell bars.
I mean that's the fun thing about it too, is I think like it's a way to deal with what's going on too. you know, expressing.
I love drawing. That's the other thing. It's like hiking for me. It's like meditation. When I'm drawing, I mean, I'm not even thinking about eating. If I eat too much the day before and I don't want to eat so much today, I'll just start drawing, and it'll just take my mind off it. I was going through a period of anxiety and claustrophobia once. And I thought, oh my God, I'll never be able to work again. I won't be able to fly anywhere because feel like I'm trapped in the plane. And that feeling came over me whenever a plane was like stuck on the tarmac. I'm sitting in it and it's stuck in the middle of the tarmac because we got to wait for another plane or something. We're out there for an hour or whatever. I will take out a sketch pad and start drawing, or a napkin, and that just takes my mind. Everything.
Oh yeah. Totally.
Escape.
Oh yeah. No, it's. I mean, that's the thing too, is like it can be easy. Like it's weird. I think that's the weird part about having to do it for a magazine illustration, because sometimes there's like so much that you have to do for somebody else. And that's one thing that sometimes I forget that I'm doing a drawing for a magazine, and I get lost in it. Yeah. And I start going someplace else, and I'm really loving it. And then you show it to the art director, and they're like, "Ooh, what happened there?" And you're like, oh, I was having a good time, and
Yeah.
and
But that, if you just take away the deadlines, because I've had some artist
yeah,
friends, and I remember in hindsight, it's always about the deadline for him. Berkeley
yeah.
Breathed. Berkeley Breathed? He does Bloom County, I think it's called.
I don't
Really
know.
great. I mean, talk about using light, and you should check him out sometime. Look at his work. But he used to live on Vashon Island off of Seattle, and he would always have a deadline to get his comic strip to the newspapers.
Yeah.
And he would always have to FedEx it at a certain time back then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then I've had other friends but it was always about the deadline when you were actually hired to do a job.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's not really that case for the artwork for me. So I always can have fun with it, and I could, start a drawing and then finish it like a year later if I wanted to.
Yeah. I mean, that's the good thing about that, I guess.
Yeah.
I had
There's no money involved.
Yeah.
Not getting any return.
But I mean, that stuff kind of, like I said earlier, was that like like deadlines, when you're working on, like a 2-day deadline or something, it can be one of those things that in one way, it's like it pushes you to do something maybe that you never would have done before, because it's almost like a marathon. Like, hey, I got to get this done. And but then there are those times where you're just like, oh, I did this Time magazine cover with Trump and Pelosi, and I was so excited that because Time hardly ever uses caricature on their cover, and so I couldn't believe it. Actually, I was like, I even talked to the art director a second time, like, "Are you sure we're doing caricature?" And he said, "Yeah," and I was just so excited. So I just started getting into it and working on the sketches and everything, and then something happened to my computer. My Cintiq started bonking out and acting weird, and it was so stressful. I only had a couple days to do the cover, and my what do you call it, pen or whatever, stylus, it started doing this thing where when I would go to make a mark, and it was not giving me any control. Like I couldn't get a soft, or like it would just be a thick line. And then even when I wasn't even touching the screen, if I moved it across the screen, it would put a line across the screen. I wasn't even touching the screen. Yeah. All these things kept happening. And I'm working on a Time cover, and it was the most stressful thing. And I couldn't fix it. I was on the phone with Wacom. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And I told him, I think it's my pen. I think my pen is dying or something. I don't know. They like overnighted me a pen, which was awesome. And I've only got like, I have, it's due the next morning basically, and I'm supposed to be done.
Yeah. And
so I get this pen, and all of a sudden everything's working perfect. But now I have to work the whole night through just to get it done, because they need it in the morning. So basically just work all night long, no sleep. And the last little detail that I had to do was paint these little tweets that are sitting on this, little tweet birds that Trump's like flinging, through the air.
Yeah.
And I left those last because I thought, that'll be the easiest thing. It's very simple. But I wanted to make the tweets, I wanted to do more with them, like make them almost look like Angry Birds or something, have more character. But it got to the point where the whole cover was done. It needs to be handed in, and I only have like a half an hour or so to do these tweet birds. And so I had to just do them so fast for the cover of Time magazine. Amazing. And but it's one of those things that to this day, like I still look at that cover and I'm like very excited, very proud and happy. But then when I look at the tweets, I'm like, the tweets, they could have been so much better. And I look at it and I think about that.
That's like me finding that one person in the audience who's not laughing, and just focus on that.
Oh, that's yeah. I don't know. It haunts you.
Yeah.
Does that really get to you? Like if someone's not.
On occasion it will. It's kind of like there was a point where I would just try to get that person to laugh and not care about the rest of the people because I already won them over. But now it doesn't bother me. I just figured he's got or they've had a hard day and or somebody's sleeping in the late show. And I used to say something about it. Now I don't even say anything. I mean, because I've been there before. I'll fall asleep in the audience, at a Broadway show or something.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious, man. Well, I mean, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I know you got a lot going on.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and we definitely need to talk again soon, more art stuff, and I'm always open to answer questions or whatever. So
Great. Well, I'm definitely going to be in touch with you about, hooking up with some lessons and stuff.
Oh, that'd be awesome. That'd be really cool.
You were the master.
The master.
Yeah.
But yeah, before we end this, do you have anything, obviously hiking with Kevin or anything, are you coming to any cities soon doing stand-up, or you want to promote?
Well, people could check out my tour schedule. It's coming up. I have to update my website, but I'll be doing that soon as I find a window. But I have my tour schedule will be on my website, kevinnealon.com. Also, I'm on a show called Man with a Plan on CBS, which is airing that's 4th season, I think, in February of 2020. That's with Matt LeBlanc and myself. And that's awesome. That's it.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you wearing a shirt and hanging out. My last guest didn't wear a shirt and it was really weird. But thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it, and I hope to talk with you soon, man.
Thanks, Jason. Likewise. And I'm going to continue to enjoy your artwork.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. I'm honored.